Chapter 13. The Story of Iron John while he rides the red, the white, and the black horses. I don't understand why everyone is afraid of failing, when it hurts so much more to miss out on everything that you dream of because you lack the courage to try.
My guy, a new year creates a new world, and before you ask yourself why someone doesn't like you, ask yourself, why do you give a shit?
Said the white buffalo. Just perfect.
Now back to the story. It's time to meet the red, the white, and the black horses. To start, we know that our society produces a plentiful supply of boys, but it seems to produce fewer and fewer men. To become a man, there are many sorts of initiations, many models, many sequences of rituals and teachings. All sequences of initiatory stages are linear, and initiation itself resembles a sphere. With that warning, we could look at a linear view of male initiation laid out in 5 stages. First, bonding with the mother and separation from the mother. Second, bonding with the father and separation from the father. Third, the arrival of the male mother, or the mentor, who helps the man rebuild the bridge to his own greatness or essence. Fourth, apprenticeship to a hurricane energy such as the wild man, or warrior, or Dionysus, or Apollo. When we have done this well, a young man receives a drink from the sacred waters of the Spirit, which is a divine spring. Fifth, the marriage with a holy woman, or the queen. When it comes to the personal father, or king, we know that he has an orderly, blessed, and creative side known as the sacred king, which can be helpful for his sons to pass through the initiation stages joyfully. But there is also a twisted or poisoned side of the sacred king through the father. The poisoned king will lay his curse on the fairest joys, whether that be his son's generativity, self-esteem, sexuality, and so this will lead the son to be blocked from the garden. As for the Great Mother, she has 2 sides as well, a positive side of acceptance, nourishment, praise, and courage, which flow down to her son. But the Great Mother also has a twisted or poisoned side. This twisted side of the Great Mother doesn't want the boy to grow up, because if he does, he will pass out of her realm. She doesn't curse him, but she holds or confines him. With this being said, there is a lot to navigate as a son when growing into a man. One needs to be able to say these truths without laying blame on the mother or father, for the same thing happened to them when they were boys and girls. Still, the process of initiation must occur if the boy is to become a man, or if a girl is to become a woman. And so in the boy's case, if he finds himself unable to get the key under his mother's pillow and begin the journey, perhaps he worries about her too long or is too attached. When a man finds himself unable to descend into the ashes or enter the garden, perhaps he is too attached to his father or worried about him too long. Not all men move through the stages of initiation with the speed that Iron John's students do, and it's quite difficult to achieve a clean break with both the mother and the father. And what of the men who are really unlucky? The man who does not love his mother or father, the man severely beaten or abused or forcefully abandoned. These are the suffering men whose pain is deeper than any of us can imagine. Such a man could become a cold-hearted survivalist living in Idaho with his dogs and an AK-47. Others may become angry boys inside, or fall into wife-beating or violence at a traffic light. So how is he able to get out of this aggressive mode? Our story says that such a man needs a male mother, or a male mentor to whom he can bring his 3-legged horse, which is the wounded body of his life. And through this mentor, he can receive a horse with all 4 legs. To return back to our story, I was a young man who was luckier than most of us. As I passed through the ashes and the garden, when I rode into the battle, I was given a whole horse lent to me by Iron John. Then I returned the war horse and rode home on the hippity-hop horse with jeers from the stable boys. But as a boy becomes a man, I knew what I'd accomplished and was proud,
said the white buffalo. My mother always said that when you look in the mirror, be proud of the person looking back.
That's right. But does the story end here? No. As a young man, during the battle, I entered the realm of conflict joyfully, which could be the conflicts in the psyche, as if it were my proper territory. True warriors are precious, so much so that when a man has developed the inner and outer warrior, one is tempted to say, this is enough, though the warrior mode can poison our negative side. The warrior's twisted or poisoned side can turn us into a poisoned father, which may amount to brutality, pillage, mindless killing, wife-beating, rape, and betrayal of all the sacred king's human values. Men who are invigorated by warrior energy need the ability to modulate out of the warrior mode. Returning to the story, we remember that the last part ended with the victory over the king's enemies. We guess that the king's daughter has become curious about the identity of that mysterious knight who saved the kingdom. We remember that the king's daughter suspects that as a gardener's boy, I was someone unusual. It occurs to her that the only way to find out if the gardener's boy is the mysterious knight is to invite all the knights in the kingdom to come to the court for a festival and to show themselves. So the king says to his daughter, I'll arrange a great festival that will last 3 days, and you will be the one who throws out the golden apple. Perhaps the mysterious knight will appear. After the announcement of the festival had been made, as a young man, I rode to the edge of the forest and called out for Iron John.
Iron John! Iron John! Iron John!
The wild man appeared and asked, What do you need?
I want to catch the golden apple that the king's daughter is going to throw,
I told him. There's no problem. You virtually have it in your hands right now, and so I'll provide you more. Red armor for the occasion, and a powerful chestnut horse. As a young man, I galloped to the field at the proper time, rode among the other knights, and no one recognized me. The king's daughter stepped forth, and she threw the golden apple into the group of men, and it was I who caught it. Having caught it, I galloped off into the forest and was gone. When the second day arrived, Iron John had me fitted out with white armor and provided a white horse. This time, when the princess threw the apple, it also landed in my hands, and once more, I did not pause for an instant, but I galloped off. That made the king angry, and the king said, This behavior is not allowed. He is supposed to ride over to me and report his name. Whoever catches the apple on the 3rd day, and if he gallops off again, chase him. And if he refuses to return, give him a blow by your sword. Upon the 3rd day of the festival, Iron John gave me black armor and a dark horse. That afternoon, when the princess threw the apple, I caught it a 3rd time, and as I rode away with it, the king's men galloped after me, and one got close enough to wound my leg with the end of his sword. I escaped, but the horse made such a powerful leap that my helmet fell off, and everyone could see that I had golden hair. The king's men rode home and told the king everything that happened,
said the white buffalo. That's fantastic! But what's the meaning of the golden apple, the curious nature of the festival, and the sequence of the 3 colors on the horses?
The golden apple in this story hints that events are happening in some special space or time, that they are connected with ritual. In Greek myth, the apple could be associated with immortality. As we know, in the Greek ritual of Adonis, men were given a golden apple as a passport to paradise. Paradise means a walled space, and the Celts imagined paradise to be an apple orchard in the west where death is. We also have a hint there that the king's daughter, the woman who loves gold, is choosing someone to be the sacred king. It is natural in our story that we pass into ritual space and notice that the knights do not fight during the festival, since the fighting took place before. The festival does not involve javelins knocking men out of their saddles or armor being pierced. Some change is being asked for in the expression of the warrior energy. We could say that here, as the young man, I learned to modulate out of the aggression through display, form, and ritual. Now, as young men, we display our beauty and we pass in procession, and luck determines who gets the apple. As we reflect on this ritual space, which could be called liminal space, before one enters it, one undergoes some ritual preparation, and the physical spot also requires preparation to set it apart. Inside that ceremonial place, both time and space become changed, different from what they are in the profane place. Change or transformation can only happen when man or woman is in ritual space. One first needs to step over a threshold by some sort of ceremony, and the second, the space itself needs to be heated. The festival is that ritual space, and so, if we examine it, we may look at Dionysus, who is said to have founded Greek theater. We know that Dionysus's initiation work took place in exquisitely maintained ritual spaces. Greek theater was a transfer of this elaborate ritual space to a public event. Ritual space has several more characteristics. When we are in it, our desire energy does not rush forward towards its climax, whether that be an orgasm or a battle, but delight replaces fury. Enjoying ritual space, then, is an intimate and imaginative act, and enjoying such space resembles being closed in a bowl, or a basket, or an alchemical crucible. Each person's interior emptiness has its own shape, and in ordinary life, we try to satisfy our longing and fill the emptiness, but in ritual space, we learn to experience the emptiness or longing and not to fill it. Such a man can be in the presence of innocence without moving to have sexual intercourse with it, enjoy his fierceness without acting it out physically. A warrior can enjoy the beauty of his sacred warriorhood without engaging in battle. And so in this festival of ritual space, I slowed down my step, gave grace to the moment, offered a bow to the king and queen, pushed through no boundaries, and there is no hostility to be seen from me. We could say this graceful display moves the princess to throw the apple at just the right moment. This ritual space carries a young man out of machismo, out of the battlefield and dominator fantasies, and it could be said to be the highest state of consciousness as constant creativity or the shining city of art. The golden apple leads us into the paradise of form. When it comes to the horses I rode, that aspect of wholeness on the four-legged horses displays what it is like to live without shame. The peacock expresses the vivid and outrageous display what the absence of shame is like. The pride of the peacock is the glory of God. This whole aspect shows us that the interior warriors have become strong enough, so I didn't have to ride in the corners and haystacks, but I appeared at a public function. I was able to parade with other men where the apple was to be thrown. Only when a man's interior warriors are strong enough could I go into the joy of display. Poetry is a form of display. The poet bird repeats vowels and consonants in order to widen his tail. Meter and counted syllables make up the peacock tale. The poem is a dance done for some being in the other world. When a man or woman enters ritual space, each takes action meant to be seen, and the joy of display helps pull energy that would otherwise be invested in conflict. Here warriorhood has not been repressed or skipped over, but can modulate into beauty delight, display, and art,
said the white buffalo. But what about the horses and their colors?
Iron John gave me different colored horses, saddles, and armor for each of the 3 days. Red is a color for blood of birth, menstrual blood, and bloodshed by weapon. It also stands for red earth. It can be thought of when someone says they are seeing red. Red suggests bull-like rages, and this is a certain transcendence of that. White stands for milk, water, semen, lakes, rivers, priesthood, and blessing by flowing waters. Whiteness represents the seamless web of connection that ideally ought to include both the living and the dead. It is the right relationship between people with strength and all good things. White could stand for good fellowship and purity for high moral purposes. Black is charcoal, river mud, the shadow work, and stands for badness and evil, suffering, lack of purity, for night and darkness. Black here refers to the connection of the mystical or ritual death. To die means to reach the end of a particular stage in development, and through death, here lies maturity. A man who goes into the black has to confront their shadow. How many years pass before a man finds the dark parts of himself that he threw away? When he does find those parts and receives them, other people will begin to trust them. This is the same in the alchemist sequence. First is black, the black of lead, untouched by spirit or consciousness. In the second stage, the whiteness. White here stands for purification that is going on through imagination, spirit, and humor which are developing. But in this state of whiteness, one does not live in a true sense of the word. It is a sort of abstract state. In order to make it come alive, we must have blood. It must have been what the alchemists called the redness of life. The alchemist's third stage is the red, rising sun. Now sulfur appears, flaring up with passion. This is the path of men and women who have increased personality, more spirit, occult knowledge, and who want spiritual lead to turn into spiritual gold. And I don't think we should consider one horse better than another. All we can say is that none should be skipped. We need 3 skills, where each horse shines at different times and responds to riders differently. When I was able to ride on the black horse, then the horse itself carried me to the place where the king's men would wound me. At that instant, my gold hair is revealed, so everyone knows who I was, and that's the next part of our story,
said the white buffalo.